Have you ever been confused about where the pain came from or where the hormonal issue came from? You may have had it diagnosed by the relevant medical specialist. Say if you got a lump in your breast and you had your oncologist diagnose that, or maybe you got your gynecologist who diagnosed your PCOS, your fibroids, and you have some GP who diagnosed you with high blood pressure. Your diagnosis does not mean that you know the root cause, or rather your knowledge of the diagnosis or you're being given the diagnosis doesn't mean that that person who treated you, that doctor or therapist, actually gave you the root cause. And that's my focus for the video today. So if you're sitting there going, I'm not sure how to target treating the body, I'm not trying to side holistic versus Western medicine or pharmaceuticals versus herbs. I'm coming from a creation standpoint, and I apply the knowledge that I've been given, right? Stewarding the knowledge that I've been taught in school and putting it into creation perspective and asking myself, if I were to test every knowledge that I've acquired as a doctor and I test it against the creation perspective, what does that knowledge, does the knowledge still stand? And I'll give you a quick example. I'm just gonna reach for my book here, okay? Like this 𝗷𝗫𝗏𝗏 𝗏 book, okay? And I'm not at any, by any means trying to slam the author or anything like that, but the 𝗷𝗫𝗏𝗏 𝗏 talks a lot about the benefits of liver, benefits of organ meats, and the power of eating muscle meat and organ meats together and stuff like that. But yet it slams stuff it slams nutrients like turmeric and polyphenols from green tea and stuff like that, and calling them toxic. And I want to sort of bring you back to a video that I've uploaded before called "Toxics Are Purely Man-Made," and this is where, again, from the creation perspective, get this, guys, God does not make any mistakes. When He created everything, He called it good, and it's good for us, for everyone. Whether it is good for your disease at that moment, that's another story. That's why in our clinic when we help coach patients through eating, using food as medicine to help with certain disease progression and stuff like that, we actually tell them to stay away from certain foods because it just doesn't help the disease heal. But ultimately, the person that's being treated here in the clinic ultimately can get back to those foods because those were meant for them, for their benefit, for their pleasure. So because our goal is to have everything healed, by the time they get healed, they can actually enjoy all the foods that God has designed for them. So again, going back to the Bible, the creation perspective, and actually testing every single scientific knowledge that's out there and bringing it back to going, if I test it, does it still stand? Because my ultimate goal is to function as God intended. And like I said before, His plan A, His perfect will, was for us to live in perfect health. But how many of you guys know that our whole world is riddled, right, with disease and pain and suffering and stuff like that? So people who are finding themselves in a doctor's clinic should actually strive to understand what God's plan B is. And plan B for God, for us, is really to heal as per design. And that's when we look at creation and we test it against the creation perspective and go, does this support creation? Okay, so like I said, I'm not saying that this book is no good. I would use this book sparingly, and I would judge the content based on creation. And I have taught patients how to eat, and they have gotten miles and miles better just by including beef, liver, and other carnivorous type foods. And then again, the whole carnivorous versus vegan and stuff, obviously that's just a debate that's just a battle that you don't want to fight. But then again, everything that God created is good, and that's what I'm about to talk about right now. And in light of the quintessential application QA protocol developed by Dr. 𝘬𝘂𝗏 𝗏𝗏 and 𝘬𝘪𝘵. Okay, now the UFC, as suggested by the video title, I talked about pain being sort of the number one thing that we consider as the root cause for a lot of health problems. Like I mentioned in my caption, that in this whole 3-pillar framework that I treat my patients, the body never has any issues just because the body is by itself, right? The body is dependent on the soul, and the soul is dependent on the spirit. And this is where I've talked about the spirit, soul, body framework, and that's not the video for today. But today I'm really going to delve into, when I'm looking at just the body, and I dealt with the mindsets, I dealt with the fears that came from broken relationships, which is the first 2 pillars of health. Then dealing with the 3rd pillar of health, treating the pain and disease. This is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at purely understanding in the body what came first. And this is where we actually get into this picture that is literally in every neurology textbook, every anatomy textbook, every physiology textbook, basically every doctor student or some kind of health science student will have understood, or at least studied and been tested about this. And this is the cross section of a spinal cord, right? And this is just the right side, right? This is the back of the spinal cord, this is the front of the spinal cord. And I deliberately took out this page of this book because this really is the foundation, the fundamental concept of how we actually visualize a patient's problems. So when someone comes in and says, I have hormonal issues, right? Understand that this is nociceptor, so this is where the pain came from, okay? So this is the root cause for a lot of things. And I'm gonna now delve into why nociception actually affects everything, purely based on creation. This is how God designed the body. And look at that. Now, there's this thing called the autonomic motor neuron intermedial lateral column, okay? And that's really where your sympathetic ganglion is. And if you're not medically trained, please don't attempt to understand that. But essentially, what I'm trying to tell you is that out from this column, where this black dot is, there is a connection between this cell column, this little nodule right here, and pain. So pain actually affects the autonomic motor neuron intermedial. See, it's a mouthful, okay? But it affects the IML, the intermedial lateral column, the IML, and that actually affects organs. It affects the way your hormones run, the way your enzymes are produced, your stomach enzymes, your liver enzymes, your small intestine. So in fact, every organ system that you have in the body is being affected by the IML, or is being controlled by the IML. And guess what affects it? Pain. That's why I titled the video, Pain Undealt With Affects Everything Else. So hormones, organ systems are affected if you don't feel pain. That's why we have patients who get better in their hormonal function, in their lab results and testing that we do here, just by fixing their pain, okay? And you can look at the flexor withdrawal response, flexor alpha motor neuron. Look at all these vast complex connections, right, where it actually says that when you have pain, you actually have a response where your body gets into this injury mode and it completely leaves out whatever is injured. So what I mean is, like, I give this example quite commonly in the clinic, where if I need to based on my motor programming, if I need 10 muscles to lift up this little mouse, right, and 2 of them are injured, because of my will, which is stronger than my body state, right, my will is going to override the lack of those 2 muscles. So I'm actually going to keep doing this movement because I will to do it, but I'm actually going to unintentionally, right, because my brain's already done the job for me, because of this response coming from pain, what it does, it actually creates a self-perpetuate or self-limiting loop where it leaves out those 2 muscles. So I'm actually lifting up this mouse consistently without those 2 muscles. And guess what? Going back to creation, God designed the lifting of this mouse, okay, like, and I said hypothetically, right, to be done by the action of 10 muscles, those 10 muscles, which I won't get into. And 10 is just a hypothetical number. I'm just giving an example. And the idea is that the 2 muscles that are injured eventually will be completely lost in the brain. it won't be used, it will just be left unused. And the other 8 muscles, right, there will be some muscles that will start to overwork and some will underwork. And what that does is it causes imbalance, and guess what? It causes pain. And that's why when we fix someone's nociception or pain, we often find many injuries, right, where the brain has completely left out the specific muscles that we tested. And when putting them back, all of a sudden, the body can move in various ways that the patient couldn't do before. Why? Because now we have restored those responses which was actually negated or completely obliterated temporarily, right, because of an injury. So this is why we fix nociception first, okay? And if you look at all these things where when it comes to the spinal thalamic tract, reticulus, tactile tract, all these have intricate links with the way your eyes move, the way you hear, the way your wakefulness, your sleepfulness, all functions in the body come out from the spinal cord. And that's why the brain and the spinal cord are the control centers, or the brain is the control center which mediates its effects through the spinal cord. And that's why we subscribe to the power of pain, which is nociception. And that's why a lot of times when we teach patients how to get rid of chronic pain, we fix all these problems and then we teach them how to move. Why? If I'm gonna zoom in here, can you see the word mechanoreception here? Right? You can clearly see that this thick line right here clearly cancels out nociception. So you were designed to move because movement cancels out pain. Now, let's just stop right there. Brilliant. Because God designed you to move as He designed. Why? Because movement actually cancels out pain. And why is pain bad? Because it actually affects everything. It affects your IML, it affects your hormones, it affects your sleep, it affects everything. So we have patients getting no need for a sinoplasty anymore, no need for a hormonal pill. Why? Because now their pain has been resolved. And that is the beauty of what we do. And we just restored the body to how it was designed, which is to function with more movement that cancels out any pain. So I want to submit to you that, if you haven't been alerted to this truth, right, then you're probably missing out on a lot of healing that your body has locked up inside of you, or rather been locked up and not utilized inside of you. And it can simply be done by going to someone like myself who actually deals with chronic pain. So I do have some patients who ask, I have this pain specialist who deals with how the brain gets rewired to reverse chronic pain and stuff. Perfect. The stuff that we do here are purely based on function, and we don't have any electrodes hooked up to the patient and stuff like that. But the science is the same. That means what we do with patients with my hands, and that's really my own conviction with chiropractic and using the practice of my hands, and just using my hands, I'm able to apply this science, right, in its fullest capacity. And that's why I don't subscribe to those equipment. But I'm not saying that they don't work. They may work for you, but as long as it is according to this science, where the equipment or that technology encourages more mechanoreception, which is movement or touch, and negates nociception, which is pain. Okay, now to end off this video, I'm just going to quickly show this checklist, because this really is the hallmark of the quintessential application protocol that I use in the clinic, and really is looking at from steps 1 all the way to 32, where we get someone's body to heal based on a hierarchy. And you can see there's just so many different steps, right? You can have like we fix patient's posture, and then we fix patient's nutrition, then we fix their immune system, then we fix how they breathe, then we fix their heart, having emotional issues with pain and traumas and stuff like that. Then we fix hormonal issues, then we fix some gastrointestinal issues, then we fix some more emotional stress, then we fix the spine and muscles and stuff like that. And this is where when someone talks about chiropractic and says, "Oh, it's really powerful," it is something that has helped them much. But then my question is, based on science, a subluxation or a misalignment, which is what chiropractors typically fix, actually they only come at step 29 out of the entire protocol of 32 steps. So my question is, if it came back and you're getting it adjusted again and again and again by the chiropractor, not blaming the chiropractor, because if the chiropractor just stuck to what he learned in school, then fixing step 29 is going to be all that he knows. But imagine if the chiropractor starts asking that question, what if there was some kind of immune system problems that happen in steps 9 to 11, or some kind of gastrointestinal issues that happen from step 21 to 23 that happen, maybe that's causing his misalignment. Guys, this is why in my clinic, we actually focus on a really comprehensive new patient form that actually touches on every single step in this protocol. So when someone comes in and says, "I've never had my spine adjusted," I tell them that I will only adjust their spine for maximum 3 times. And then we look for other root causes. Why? I don't want to waste the time. I don't want to keep telling them that you got to come back and pay money just to get your spine adjusted, when I know there are 28 different steps that will precede a spinal misalignment. So I hope that makes sense. And I just really wanted this video to get you viewers to start thinking deeper, because your healthcare practitioner may not be trained in this. And I'm saying that at the moment, with this amount of science available, too few people, doctors and patients alike, know about this truth. So then again, I'm not hyping up this protocol. I'm giving honor and credit to the creators of the protocol, but ultimately what they did was simply compile into a workable solution. Okay, this is a thick book of like 200 pages, workable protocol that doctors like myself and patients like yourself can actually refer to understand the absolute root causes of their body health issues within the body itself. Okay, and obviously, like you guys know, we go beyond the body and look at the soul and the spirit and stuff like that. Okay, so with that, I end this video, and I know this is a rather lengthy video, but thank you for watching till the very end. And if you like this content, please comment, please subscribe, because I am bent on getting this truth out to the world, where I'm giving health talks and seminars and workshops all across the country, and this is what really gives me joy. So your liking, your comment, your subscribing, even hitting the notification bell, that would really give me more support so that I can get this out to the masses as quickly and as effectively as possible. So with that, bless you, and I wish you good health.